everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of The Pulse. We're all together again. It's been months.
Woo!
It feels good to be together. I
Jen has just been working me ragged. It's been terrible. No, I'm kidding.
right. That's not true. That's not true. I was sitting on the beach. Not for months, just for a week. But it's great. It's great to be back. This week, the roadmap is a little bit different because we have well over 300 entries. So, you know how we've always told you it ebbs and flows? Well, it flowed this week. And the crazy thing is we had that big announcement about Copilot, and yet there is still nothing on the roadmap for Copilot. So we have 300 updates on non-Copilot things.
Yeah, so if they would have had a Copilot, it would have been like 500,
Likelihood.
Right.
Yeah.
It would have been quite the week. So I expect that we're hitting that season where they've kind of been building things up, and we're gonna launch. The roadmap's big now, so it's gonna be big for the next couple of probably weeks as things go from in development to rolling out to different things like that. But do not worry, we are not going to sit here for 300 items and tell you line by line what they are. We're going to give you a summary of an update. Even though there's a ton of items out there, I don't know that anything is drastic and or life-changing, at least that I saw. But why don't we start off today with talking about Copilot and talk about that big announcement. Even though it's not in the roadmap, it's definitely worth talking about. So who wants to give us an overview or a quick summary of what Copilot is or the announcements that were made this week?
Want to go for it, Adam?
Oh, you can go for it, Tom.
Okay. So Copilot. Copilot is, and correct me all if I'm wrong, because this is from the non-NDA, the person who doesn't work for a consulting firm view of things. But this is Microsoft's huge push to put like the Chat GPT logic that you see where everybody types in questions saying, hey, tell me a poem about work and Shakespearean, whatever. And it spits it out in like 5 seconds. And it's really pretty freaking good too. Microsoft basically bought into that big time, and they are now starting to implement it in many of their Microsoft 365 offerings. So one of the things with Copilot that you're seeing is it will actually help you write code if you're out there trying to create code that will do X, Y, Z. That's one thing. It's also going to be rolled into things like Word, Outlook to generate information for you. Like I saw one example, they were talking about you could be in a Word document, and using this new feature, you could have the Word document say, turn this Word document into a PowerPoint presentation. And poof, it's going to generate a PowerPoint file for you with all the information that it takes from, the Word document. It can say, hey, based on this OneNote page, generate meeting minutes that I can distribute out. And it will attempt to do that. Now, granted, bottom line is you have to go look at it yourself and make sure it actually looks right. But there's going to be a lot of this. I can help respond to stuff for you. I can help, categorize stuff for you. And it goes beyond kind of some of the, Graph API knows what you're doing. And hey, I'll suggest a 1 or 2 word reply. This is like, I'll send you a paragraph about what you're about to do.
I'll reply for you.
Yeah. And on one hand, it's like, this is really freaking cool. The other hand is, this is really kind of freaky. Because at what point do you not be part of it,
It was, go ahead, Adam.
Well, I was just gonna say, I heard a great analogy that's not tech driven to kind of explain the evolution of large language models, which is the idea of what's powering this behind like Chat GPT and all this Copilot stuff. So traditionally, if you were to go through and Bing or Google something, you could type in like, give me a recipe for banana bread. and it would give you a whole bunch of search results, and you had to go through and decide which one was right for you. And sometimes you'd be digging through a web page and stuff like that. Once you had large language models, you could say, give me a recipe for banana bread. And rather than giving you search results, it could give you like, just here's the ingredients you need for your recipe. But the really powerful thing is not just that it like, searches and picks for you. You could then follow up and say something like, well, can I use vegan butter with this? Now, before, if you had to do that, you'd have to go and find a website that specifically was dedicated for vegans and talking about what to do for banana bread, whereas the large language model has already consumed that stuff for you. So it can give you a real practical answer to your question that is contextual about what you originally searched. And I think that's a wonderful example here. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a wonderful example of like some of the cool stuff Copilot can do. And now you have to take it a step further, which I'm sure Jen will touch on here, of like applying this to Word and PowerPoint and Excel. But it's that understanding and being able to produce real results that you haven't had before by having this large language model incorporated into it.
Yeah, and it's neat. I read one of the stats on that Jared and Satya shared, and it was like people say that they spend 80% of their day doing miscellaneous or extraneous activities and 20% of their day on the core of what it is they're doing for the company. So if that's true, they're trying to hit the 80%. Like if I'm spending all day writing PowerPoint, that's not the core of what I can do. Now I'm good at PowerPoint, but that is not why Planet Technologies hired me. That was not to become a PowerPoint artist, So if they can help with speeding up some of that, then they're going to switch that, maybe that 20% becomes 40%, and that's where we gain the productivity. So I love that they named it Copilot, because you don't let the Copilot fly unless something's wrong with you. So, it's there. You have to check it. It's definitely not check free. But I've done some really cool things with it. I was just showing the team some of the things we could do manually with ChatGPT, but I'm excited to see where they take it. I think licensing and dates and all of that, they're of course, brief on all of that in an announcement, but I think this will revolutionize the way that we work. I don't know to what extent and in what timeline, but this is going to be like the future. Like we're going to be like, I remember when I had to start from blank on a PowerPoint and you just got a white screen, and now they do it for you.
Tom, even too. So I'm somewhat like Tom. I don't know if and we'll have to see. I don't know if I fully trust going in and saying just like, make me a PowerPoint presentation based on this word. Maybe that gives me a starting point. I'm super excited about the stuff that like, I am not a PowerPoint expert. Now I can spend time and I can eventually make stuff look good, but you can even do stuff like take this bulleted list I did and instead make it into 4 columns that summarize the points.
And then automate it. That we just watched the little video.
And it will just do that for you. And like, that is something that would probably take me 45 minutes to eventually put together, where I'm like manually dragging stuff, trying to get the spacing right and doing stuff like that. Like even stuff like that, where maybe I'm not looking to do holistic creation for me from scratch, but just take something that I already have and make it crisp and clean and look good. And just being able to do that through like basically a request in chat and having it interpret that's going to be a lifesaver to me. And like what Jen said, the core part of my job too often gets bogged down in doing stuff like that, where it's like, that's a necessary evil of what we all do, because you need to have something that you can show to a client that can be presentable, that can look good, or show at a conference, whatever it is. Having something that can take out some of what, to be blunt, I feel like is almost the mundane stuff and do it for me quickly, that more than anything I'm super excited about.
Well, and one thing too, from a programming perspective, I remember we were playing around with it, and this was outside of the announcements that Microsoft made, is one of my coworkers said they were trying to do this one thing whereby they could have a master calendar out there, and based on a particular entry in the master calendar, it could push it to everybody's calendar in the company for that particular thing. And they were having one heck of a time trying to figure out the code that would actually do that. So just for kicks, they basically said, hey, show me code for da 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 da, and it spit out the right answer immediately. And they're like, what took us 2 weeks, this did in like 10 seconds. And what I find is that people, it's always been a joke. It's like, oh, you're a programmer, you live on Stack Overflow to get all your answers because you can copy and paste it from there. Yeah, that's true. Well, now people are starting to use ChatGPT to get that. And I remember the first time I said, well, let's just try this for kicks because it's not a graphical interface. Show me how to write a Power Automate script that would take a new item that was entered into a SharePoint list and send out an email based on that coming in. And it thought about it for about 2 seconds and said, while I can't actually build one for you, here's what you would do. You would start with the SharePoint connector trigger of when a new item is created, followed by an Outlook email action V2 to send an Outlook email. I'm like, oh my God, it's actually telling you what connectors and triggers to use.
What's powerful about this is while GPT will tell you, well, I can't do this for you. As soon as we get into the Microsoft ecosystem, they're going to be able to do it for us.
Well, it's already doing it,
which
because
is
if you go
fantastic.
out to Power Automate, there is a you describe it, we build it feature now. And it's relatively new. I think it was released just about the time we had the big North American Collaboration Summit in Branson. But I thought, well, how can this do? Build me a blah, 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 blah. And like, okay, here's your flow. Boom. I'm like, okay, that's a little scary. Now, granted, you can't say, and only send it out when it was done by Mary with this kind of a status, but this is the very beginning. Where does it end up?
So I think the down and dirty with Copilot is, it's there to do the heavy lifting and we're there to do the fine tuning.
That makes sense. I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we will no doubt bring you a lot more information as this is coming. We'll be watching the roadmap to see when items hit the roadmap. I'm guessing pretty soon because the announcement just came out. Right now, it's just a press release and some videos and some different things there.
I think they
but we'll
said
keep
there's
you
like 20
posted.
companies that are currently in preview with a lot of this. So it's far from being rolled out, but there are some major customers who are playing with it to start to get feedback on it. So
Yeah, which makes sense. That's a lot of the way that Microsoft improves their products. So I'm super excited about it. So it'll be great to see what's coming. So then now going into the roadmap, we've got so many items. So I think, why don't we pass it to a couple of us and give just a summary of our
favorite
updates. Yeah.
these are a few of our favorite things.
I actually didn't get to go through too much of the in development before, so I'm going to let Tamara and Tom take that one because I'm sure you guys would pick the ones I would pick anyway. So don't worry about saving anything
I
for
left
me.
all the Viva stuff for you.
Awesome. So yeah, let's start with Tamara, and you can just kind of give us your update, and then we'll pass it to Tom and Adam, and then move to the next, the rolling out.
Smaller
so
groups.
take it away.
So there's just a couple things that I was very interested in development. One is bookings. There's now a CC functionality to email notifications, which I think is going to be very helpful. And then I thought this was dead, but apparently Microsoft is still working on it. Access. Adding a modern web browser control. So Access will provide a new web browser control to support Chromium Edge. This provides an updated browser experience within Access. I thought we were moving from Access to Power Apps.
I think we still are. But
yeah,
that
I don't
takes
know
a while.
who didn't get the message.
It probably won't happen until they turn it off, but that's
yeah. And then there was Microsoft approvals, Microsoft Teams approvals, the sequential approvers support. This is due out in April. I have about 150,000 people who are going to be so excited about this. So requesters will now be able to toggle on sequential approvals to designate the approval order to the request. So I think that's going to be a hot one. And then last one, I don't know how well this is going to work, but SharePoint, migrate SharePoint 2010 and 2013 workflows to power automate.
Just a year too late, right, Tom?
I
Yeah.
tweeted when I saw that one, I said, oh, look, they're going to have a way to automatically do this. Where was this 2 years ago when my life was ruined for 9 months?
And it's not due out until June. So it provides Microsoft 365 customers with a tool to migrate SharePoint-based workflows to Power Automate. You'll be able to migrate the SharePoint 2010 out of the box and SharePoint Designer workflows and the SharePoint 2013 SharePoint Designer workflows to Power Automate flows. This feature is going to be integrated into the SharePoint migration tool.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, because Sandra Pfeiffer and I have done a session in numerous locations, which are, Power Automate techniques that saved our bacon when we were doing all the migration. And there's some things that, yeah, there's an equivalent from one to the other. There's other ones where it's like, no, what was a simple one thing step in SharePoint Designer is like this 4-step process to get it done in Power Automate. So if you're excited about this, rock on, be excited. However, just keep in mind that I'm not sure it'll get you all of the way there in a lot of cases, much like most migration tools. You may have to go through and actually tweak certain features that we can't convert this, you need to do it yourself type thing.
Oh,
But again,
I'm sure.
if it gets most of the way there, yeah, I would have loved to have had
It'll
that
be like your
2 freaking years
co-pilot.
ago.
Yeah,
There you go.
exactly.
There you go.
Last thing, I swear this one is the last thing.
Sure.
But on Microsoft Teams and on Outlook, pronouns are going to be available on your profile card. So this is due out in March, so it should be rolling out this month. So users will have the ability to add pronouns to their profile card by adding pronouns to their profile card. Yes, somebody wrote that sentence. Users can express
Somebody
who they
approved
are
that
and help
sentence.
inform others how to address them.
And keep in
Which
mind,
I think is helpful. I mean, whether or not you're LBGT or whatever, there are some names. I work with people from other countries, and I can't tell how I
is
should
Sahesh
address
a
them.
male or female? I don't know.
Right. So
So-
I think having the pronouns on there will be really helpful for several reasons.
Do keep in mind, I think that is turned off by default. I believe you need to turn that feature on.
Cool, thanks.
Sure. Because I remember
Awesome.
we started talking about it in our situation, and it was Sandra was like, I'll take point on that because the area that she's in now, that's an important thing for them. So cool. I'm going to do a real quick run through on other team things, and I mean quick as in fasten your seatbelt. Here we go. Video filters in Microsoft Teams meetings. So these are filters that third-party people will develop with visual effects like, sparkly logos or stuff like that. Who knows? Those are going to be able to be added into Teams. That's supposed to come out in March. Of course, how you build those is missing from the whole equation, but it's going to be there. Microsoft Teams new tag management settings. This will update default management tag settings to include team owners and members and not just team owners. So you can let the members start to manage some of their own tag information. And as I scroll down and scroll down and scroll down, Microsoft Teams, automatic lowering of a user's raised hand after speaking. I'm loving this one, comes out this month. So when a person finally asks their question and shuts up, their hand should come down automatically. I really like that idea so the moderator doesn't have to do it. Microsoft Teams new channel experience coming in April. It will be an intuitive design, says so right here, that helps teams focus and actively engage. The new channel experience includes compose box and recent posts will appear at the top of the page. Every post will now have a conversation view and new right pane with the channel's key information. So keep an eye open for that if they move your cheese and Teams doesn't look the same when you come in. Microsoft Teams expanding up to 10,000 users in distribution list for
Yes.
lobby policy.
This
in
is
Teams meetings.
fantastic.
Yeah, so instead of only having the first 1,000, you're now going to be able to go up to 10,000 for those of you who have huge meetings.
Well, it's
Microsoft-
not even huge meetings because you could say anyone in this distribution list could be can bypass the lobby. But let's say I had a distribution list that had 3,000 people in it. The way it
Good
works
point.
currently is only the first 3,000 or the first 1,000
1,000.
would be registered to bypass the lobby and everyone else would go in the lobby. So how confusing is that going to be for people who are
Yeah.
like, but they're in my distribution list and I have this set. Why isn't it working? Well, because you're 1,001. So you're still going to the lobby.
So in next month, you're going to be
yeah.
able to get away with that. And that comes to everything too. So that's good. Suggested files in chat. Save time with AI-based file suggestions in chat as an expansion of suggested replies. This will say, hey, conversation, sounds like you want to share a file. Here's some suggestions about which files you may want to do. New Files apps in Teams. In your left rail, you're going to have a new application called Files, and it will basically show you, all the files that have been shared with you, the files that you have in OneDrive. It'll be an easier way to go see all of your files in one place instead of you having to go to multiple places to try to find them all. Scanning down, and I have bypassed some Teams, one that I'm not going to actually cover. There's OneNotes, there's Outlook stuff, there's SharePoint migration stuff, explicit recording consent for team meetings. This is this month also. Teams now supports an explicit recording consent meeting policy. When the policy is applied, the Teams meeting window will request explicit consent of all participants to be recorded. Before a user gives consent, the user's audio, video, and screen share consent share won't be captured in the meeting recording. That'll be really good for ones that have sensitive content and people go, I don't want to be seen, I don't want to be heard, I don't want to be known. Well, now you can decide that you don't want to be that. Teams
and stay in the meeting.
And stay in the meeting. Team spatial audio. Hey, you got really nice headsets that can do 360-degree in the round. Where are they at? Now you can be in a Teams meeting and be looking behind you because it sounds like the person who's talking to you is back there. So that's going to be an improvement on the audio portion of it. That comes out in May to GCC, GCC High, and worldwide. Microsoft Teams expanded view for profile card. They're going to be showing additional information. And it will pull in stuff. It's almost like Delph with profile cards, I think, that it gives you some more information on the fly. Getting real close to the end here. Microsoft Teams profanity filtering on-off control for live captions. If you don't want to see the word or, now that can be actually cleared out in the transcript for you, or you can leave it turned on and you get the full effect of all raw words that were inadvertently or purposely used in the course of that meeting.
Tom's way more wholesome. I would have just cussed. I would have been like, if you don't want to hear,
yeah, well, so on. Enables zooming while viewing screen shares. So now users will be able to zoom in, and zoom in and out while viewing a screen share in a Teams call recording. That's
I have two clients that have 4K monitors, and they share their screen, and it's about this big on my monitor.
Yeah.
I can't see anything.
Yeah, you're gonna love this one for that.
I get that all the time when I share with people.
Yeah, one of the Azure techs on my team literally has a 4K monitor. When he shares his screen, it's like I can't even tell letters exist. It's just kind of, well, that's kind of a darker blue in that area.
So that's coming in June, and it's going to all clients. Breakout rooms participant shuffle. Hey, if you don't like the room you're in, boom, reassign automatically, and everybody gets randomly put in different rooms. That's in June also to everybody.
I think that should just be a dance.
Yeah, there, the Microsoft, let's do the time warp. Yeah. Lots of whiteboard things out there, a lot of stream ones out there too. And I think I am done and I'm going to shut up. Go for it, Adam.
You catch your breath now.
So there are so many items in this roadmap that we cannot possibly cover all of them. I'll highlight just a couple that I thought were really cool, although I think it's worth noting. When you go through and look, I just searched for the word purview to try to cover how many items were in just the purview section. Now, to be fair, each item will have at least 2 mentions of purview, maybe 3, because it highlights individual cells, but there was 386 in this spreadsheet. So you're talking probably minimum 125, 150 items. A couple highlights from there of specific things that I thought were really, really cool in there. They're doing a whole bunch of stuff around just making Purview more relevant to the modern user and to the modern company, including stuff like they're lowering detection time on most Purview detections for stuff like insider risk from a 24-hour, which is the typical cycle that you see with Azure AD stuff, as it go through and you'll know the next day what's going on, down to 1. So the fact that you'll then know if like something's going wrong inside of your organization within an hour instead of 24 hours, like that's absolutely huge. There's another one that's specifically going to be awesome for our client base here at Planet. They actually announced that coming in June, you'll actually be able to target conditional access policies to specific apps in Azure Virtual Desktop or Windows 365. Right now, that's holistic. If you want to do a conditional access policy, you can say, we want to control everything that you do in Azure Virtual Desktop or everything that you do in Windows. That gives you a lot less customization if you're trying to go through and say, well, I don't want users to be able to, download files locally onto their computer off of there. The ability that you can go through and manage this down to the specific app level brings it on par with like a laptop or a desktop someone's using. It's really going to make this a much more viable choice and potentially a better choice for those compliant customers that are going to really care about, wanting to have a secured lockdown environment. Other than that, 2 other things I wanted to highlight that I thought were really cool. This one is just kind of nerdy, but it's technically the correct way you should do it. They're basically building in the process for you to be able to do more efficient nested groups, to where you are going to be able to add groups to dynamic groups in Azure in the future. So you'll basically be able to do stuff like, I want to put together a group that is, say in our team, we could say the East Division, and then the membership of that East Division would be like everyone that's on this team, everyone that's on that team, everyone that's on that team. And then all you'd have to do is when a new member joined a team, you'd add them to one group and they'd automatically get added into absolutely everything they needed to be. There's also a very strong argument that this is how you should be doing licensing and be doing license management and permissions management across your Azure tenant. If you listen to Microsoft and listen to people who do it well, having nested groups prevents manual mess ups by individuals, or you overlooking users or accidentally leaving someone under permission that they shouldn't be. You just manage down to the base level group that they should be in, and then through dynamic membership you can manage everything else. So the fact that they're actually incorporating this into Azure AD, why a small thing for the organizations that are using it and for the ones that are trying to do least privilege correctly, this is a huge thing and actually really, really cool and something that I'm looking forward to. The final thing that I'll put out there that I just thought was actually really cool when you go through and look at it, there was a ton of updates going through, as Tom kind of said, through Teams and through Visio and through stuff like that. When you go through and look at what they're doing, they're actually going to let you start doing some really cool stuff from Teams with some of the presentations. I was particularly attracted to what Tom talked about with the ability to zoom in, because as I said, I have certain individuals that is just absolutely amazing for me. They're also doing some really cool stuff about like global sign in and sign out, where they're trying to make the experience between your cell phone and your desktop and your second laptop a much more universal experience. That way everything is linked together. Ultimately, when I looked at the updates from this, is more of a probably admin administrator type perspective. There's a lot of quality of life improvements here that is not necessarily stuff that's going to blow a user away, but it's going to make the management and administration of what you're doing inside of your 360 environment not only more responsive and more robust, but easier. And that's honestly, that was my big takeaway going through and looking at all these updates. There's a ton of stuff in here, and a lot of the stuff is clearly Microsoft thinking of how can we just make this experience better. It's not a flashy feature they're coming out with, but it's something that's core to how the stuff functions that's really going to be quality of life improvements for the day-to-day users and day-to-day admins.
Very cool.
You're on mute.
Sorry about that. I see it very similar to the type of things quite often you see in the feedback portal, where people are like, how come I can't do this? And I want to be able to do that. They're not earth-shaking features, but they're like, somebody should have probably put this in the original version. A lot of those seem to be along those lines. So good observation.
Well, cool. Kind of moving into the, since we've kind of done a summary on the in development, moving into the launched, I'm going to talk about one, or I'm sorry, moving into the rolling out. This is rolling out. This means it's started and then they're going to keep doing it. I'm going to talk about one that I just love. And I think for years I've been saying, why can't it just do this? And that is going to be your signature in the cloud. Let's save our email signatures in the cloud. So every time I get on a new device, I do not have to go find an old email, copy the signature, put it back in there. So yes, this is coming. It says it's available to 50% of the current channel right now. The rest should be there by April. So hopefully we'll see that one coming out, but I just love that one. That one makes me happy. The other one, I'll do two and then I'll pass it. The other one that makes me happy is, first, I think it's funny that they've named it. But when you join a Teams meeting and multiple people join in the same room and it makes that god awful sound that we're all like, ah, well, they call that howling. So howling detection. They have got that, so it will stop that from happening. So instead of having that lovely echo, if that is detected, it's going to automatically mute the mic and speakers of the person who has joined. So that's great, because right now everyone's like, how do I mute? How do I mute? And it just becomes, you usually get the person who's never changed settings on their computer or something like that. And it's always fun. So the howling will be ending. So I just think it's funny that that's what they came up with. They probably actually spent a good chunk of time deciding what to call that echo. So props, howling works.
Ultrasound howling.
Can I just say from now on, when I join a meeting, I'm going to go, howl!
I know, right? Like that's what I thought of. I'm like, no, I think of a wolf, but we'll go with howling. I love it. So those are two of the ones I really like in rolling out. And then I'll pass it to, we did Tamara first last time, so I'll pass it to Tom. Okay. Although Tom usually steals everybody, so I probably should have passed to Tamara first. Yeah, but we'll go to Tom.
Pass it to Tamara first, and I'll pick up what remains.
All right, Microsoft Search, attachment search. So include classic attachments from Outlook and Search. Attachments under people-centric search on office.com shipped in December 2022. Attachments showing in the All and Files tab are scheduled for the end of March. So that should be rolling out to the commercial instance. And sorry, I just scrolled the wrong way. Went way up into in development. And then Whiteboard, save and share user templates. So users have the ability to save Whiteboard as a template and we'll be able to share the template with other individuals. I think this is brilliant. Also, it's coming out for GCC High, GCC, and DoD, along with Worldwide. I think this is great because, especially if you're like in change management, you can create a whiteboard, templatize it. Yes, that is a word.
Templatize.
Bill English came up with that word, to templatize. And then you can use it in your sessions over and over and over again. So I think that's going to save people a lot of time. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, you did take one of the ones I was going to, but that's okay. Microsoft Planner, templates in Planner Web. So if you're using the web-based version of Planner, you can get started quickly by using pre-made templates to jump into your work. I see they've done some cool stuff with big flashy entrance screens and the whole bit. I still don't think I have them in my client yet, but they're kind of starting to make it a lot easier to get these Microsoft Forms or Microsoft Planner things set up, and you can easily go out there and get ones
One of the neat things about that is when you spin up a template, it pre-populates with cards,
right,
that tell you what you need to fill in.
Yeah, which is really nice, especially when you get to a point where it's like, hey, I do this same one for every single group that I'm part of. I hate to have to go recreate it every single time. So that's a good thing. Last one that I will touch on is export Microsoft lists as a data set for Power BI Data Hub. So if you've got a SharePoint list, instead of having to export it to Excel and then import that into Power BI, you can actually export it as a data set for Microsoft List to use in the Power BI Data Hub, which means you don't have that extra step to go through. Once your list is in the Data Hub, you can take advantage of its rich visualization, easy for somebody to say, features to create powerful custom reports based on your list data. And I'm guessing the way that is phrased is once you go ahead and do that export, that linkage remains in place. So you no longer have to keep going back and doing it over and over and over again. It is then in live, any updates are going to come over based on your refresh. And that is going out to the entire array of tenants in both Power BI and SharePoint, and it should be out sometime this month.
Awesome. Well, Adam, do you have anything in rolling out?
Not really. I have a question that you may or may not be able to answer, Jen, and this is a question somewhat in jest. But they had Microsoft Viva topics in Yammer, display topic highlights, and access topic cards in Yammer conversations. Is the Yammer word still used in some stuff that's now, because Yammer as a whole got replaced by Viva? So is like Yammer conversations still a feature that's in Viva that they just haven't renamed yet, or do you have any idea?
Yeah, so we'll just that's like one of those hold tight things. They're not going to stop the ship from moving when they're making that big change, but there will be a date where it all converts over. So you'll still see things, but yeah, we'll see the Viva
I figured you'd have more insight
moniker. Yeah, it's just, I think it's just a timing thing. So those that are using Yammer now and have it deployed would want to take advantage of those features. I'm sure they're not going to do anything new without the new naming and different things like that, but I think it will be long tail.
At least for a bit, sure. Yeah. Some of the people on my team realized today actually that Yammer was no more and got renamed Viva, which is a little bit behind the times, but they realized that. And it was kind of funny when one of them commented in our group chat that was happening. The first response was from another person on my team that just said, "Oh no, the 3 people who use Yammer will be so upset."
No, there's a place and time for everything. And so there are a lot of people that use it, but not
I know some organizations, we've even helped some at Planet. I said that in jest. We've even helped some organizations deploy it that are absolutely in love with it and think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. So I said that in jest, but I did giggle when I saw that.
It's like a big toolbox, and some of us use some tools and some of us use the others.
But other than that, that was actually super informative, Jen. Thank you for that. I don't have any updates for us.
Cool. All right. Well, we can go into launched. I'm going to pass it to Tamara and Tom. I didn't really have anything in this one that I, was all about. So I'm going to let them talk about it first, and then we'll kind of go from there. So Tamara, you want to lead us off and launched?
If you have anything? I'll take one that nobody thought I would take. Ooh. Minecraft education product name change. I think this is really important because kids learn to code using Minecraft. I think it's brilliant. So we're changing the app name to Minecraft Education, and we'll be rolling out new branding starting in January. Now, that's one of the things that's going to happen is it's also the education app. The Teams Education apps is going away and being incorporated into the regular app store. So please note that the Minecraft Education is the same product as Minecraft : Education Edition. Should you see our name appear differently, we are excited to share our new look soon. Maybe that means they'll have rounded corners.
Now, Minecraft is blocks.
Yeah. That's probably not going to be circles.
Yeah, go ahead, Tom. Being silly, but yeah.
I'm leaving one for you.
Yeah, and I've only got one in this. I had to actually dig to find something I really wanted to talk about, which was Microsoft Project Assignments View. This feature provides more precision in project planning and estimation by letting you edit resource work schedules. It's launched, should be out this month, and came to all the clients that are out there.
I had zero worry that someone was going to take the one I wanted to talk about. So,
for it.
I actually think this one is actually legitimately cool, and it's relevant to what my life has been the last couple of weeks. I was laughing with the group before we started recording that I've been doing a lot of stuff with endpoint management over the last bit for a client of ours, but Microsoft Intune security policies for unenrolled Microsoft Defender for endpoint devices. Manage the security policies on Windows and Windows servers that are not enrolled in Intune or Configuration Manager but have Microsoft Defender for endpoint. So this conceptually is actually super cool. If you just read this in English, you're going to say that literally makes no sense. How could it not be enrolled but you still be managing it? This gets into the complex world of what it means to be Azure AD join versus hybrid and how that plays into effect for endpoint management on how the devices are managed. But what this essentially means is if you have a Windows machine or a Windows server that has the endpoint management client installed on it, but you haven't gone through the process of actually enrolling it or joining it with Azure AD, which is, again, it's a whole separate thing. But if it has the client, you're still going to be given some security tools and options in order to manage and protect those devices, which is a big deal. There's a multitude of reasons why you maybe don't want to go down the route of fully joining machines or Windows servers. Servers I see a little less relevant, but for Windows machines specifically, if you fully enroll a device into Intune and into Endpoint Manager, you're essentially taking control over that device, which if you're in a situation where maybe your employees are using their personal computers to do some stuff with work, which would be a valid thing to do, you probably potentially don't want to do that because that then gives you access to a whole bunch of stuff, ability to delete stuff, similar to the concept you think of like bring your own device versus corporate owned mobile phones. Just extend that out to Windows machines, and that's what we're talking about here. But this now gives you the option that, there was a kind of an unknown area before. Well, I want my users to be flexible. I want them to be able to work from home if they want to work from home, even if they're on their home computer. But at the same time, like, maybe I have secure information that I don't want just sitting on a computer that I don't know if it even has an antivirus on it or what all is going on there. So this gives you a little bit of like having your cake and eat it too. You don't have to go all the way of fully managing the device and take control of it and being overbearing with your influence and your control of it. But it gives you the ability to provide some level of security and protection on top of those devices that are touching and interacting with your corporate information as well. So this is actually a pretty big deal and a pretty cool thing. I don't think a ton of companies will necessarily utilize this, but the ones that do, this is closing a pretty big security gap that they had before. So it's nice to see.
Very cool. And rounding us out, there's just a couple of canceled items for Purview, and that is the support for a customer key. And audit support for that, and just being able to use your own customer key to encrypt your data. That is getting removed. Two separate aspects of it. It says it's being postponed indefinitely. So I think when they want to take something off the roadmap because they know it's going to be in development for a very long time, they go ahead and remove it. So that's what we're seeing here. So if you were looking to do support of a customer key for your encryption and stuff like that, that's not going to be available in Purview yet. I can't say Purview. I always say yeah. Anyway, I struggle with that word. And then the last one was just a commandlet, and it looks like they had improper information or incorrect information in the roadmap item, so they're removing it. So that's no big deal there. So those are the updates for the week. Tried to keep it short, but still made it about 48 minutes, but that's okay. We will be back next week with another round of updates. So thanks for joining us, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.